Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's NARAMS event. We will get started in about 2 minutes, so grab yourself a drink and a snack, and we'll be with you shortly. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for NARAM's first virtual event of the season, our wonderful professional development event of learning a little bit more about Power BI. My name is Christine Malajek, and I'm the Northern Alberta RIMS chapter president, and I wanted to welcome you to our event today. 192 people from across the globe signed up for this event, which is, I think, incredibly telling considering the current state that we're in with COVID, that our community has come together to share knowledge and to learn a little bit more from each other and about each other in this current operating context. Now, I have a couple of housekeeping items for you before we get started. So first things first is that this event is being recorded. So if you really enjoy this event and you want to share it with others in the near future, we'll follow up after this event with a link to Compy's YouTube channel where this will be posted, and any other materials that you maybe discuss during this event that will help you practice your Power BI skills. Second, the microphones and cameras are off for our guests, and that is to ensure a smooth run of show today and make sure that we can get through this program in a timely and effective manner. This is going to be a 90-minute interactive presentation. So if you registered in advance, we sent you an email with a workbook as well as a link to sign up for Power BI. And as Jess is going through all of the wonderful features of Power BI, you can certainly join along and experience Power BI along with her. And after, you can practice in the comfort and leisure of your own environment. Ask questions along the way, though. We do have a chat box that we'll be monitoring and watching some of the activity in to make sure that if you have any comments, questions, or concerns at key points during Jess's demonstration, that we could pause and take a moment to go over those, but also we'll leave some room towards the end to go over some additional questions about Power BI and about how to facilitate a dashboard at the end. And also as well, again, we're going to follow up after this event with an email to everybody who's registered and share this through Opus as well. So don't worry if you have to leave the event or if you've missed it or if you want to share this, because we are going to do a little bit of follow-up. Now, I am so thrilled to introduce one of the most incredible women I know in the tech space, Kara Bedford. She is the Director of Strategic Marketing for Copyvision, and she's here today to tell you a little bit about Copyvision and then introduce our facilitator, Jessa. Take it away, Kara.
Hello, and thank you, Christine, and thank you everybody for joining us today. I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on Copyvision because I'm sure there are people out there who might not have heard of us. So Copyvision is an IT management and consulting practice. We've been in Alberta for 28 years. We basically manage, protect, and accelerate businesses today and into the future. And so we can handle all of the technology needs for businesses and municipalities throughout our lovely greater wide Canada and the United States, where we have offices as well. I wanted to introduce Jessa today. Jessa Kuchmak is one of our brilliant Power BI specialists here at Compuvision, and she's going to speak about business insights through Power BI. And what Power BI basically stands for is business intelligence. So if you've never looked at data analytics or you're new to this game, that's okay, because Jessa's going to take you literally from A to Z. Jessa specializes in data analytics and process automation solutions that help organizations achieve better business outcomes. She combines all of her accounting experience as well as continuous improvement and technology experience through innovation for the sake of just being curious and innovating. Here at Copyvision, we have 3 core values: be curious, go beyond, and serve as one. And Jessa really does live these 3 throughout her practice through Power BI and her help with our clients. She encourages curiosity with an approach that results in clear ROI, return on investment, through technology innovations such as automation and Power BI. And outside of work, Jessa is an amazing human being that I have gladly gotten to know, especially through her just welcoming a baby girl just last year. So without further ado, here is Jessa, and thank you guys all again from Copyvision for joining us.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the lovely introduction, Kara. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us today to talk about business insights through Power BI. My goal is to ultimately share with you the value of being data-driven and give you an overview of Power BI by showing examples and doing a short activity with you if you'd like to join. I believe you got this slide beforehand, so I won't reiterate, especially because Kara gave a little bit about myself. But what I want to highlight here is that, business intelligence really comes with the subject matter expertise. And so with my background in accounting, having worked at PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the largest accounting firms in the world, alongside my technology continuous improvement experience, it has really come to play that using data analytics to obtain insights and make better decisions is really important and has proven success to a lot of different organizations that I've worked with. So our agenda today is a little packed. I'm a big Simon Sinek fan, so we're going to start by talking about why Power BI is important. Why should you use it? Then we're going to talk about what it really is. Then we're going to go through 2 different examples. So one is going to be for the municipality of Wood Buffalo, and then the other example will be for an executive dashboard for a sample company. Through this, I will be able to show you, not just tell you, the value of Power BI. We're going to wrap things up by building your own dashboard and showing you how to navigate through the Power BI service, which is the cloud service of Power BI, and also go through Power BI Desktop, where you can do data modeling yourself. And data modeling is really just a fancy word for saying combining your data, cleaning it, making sure that it's ready for you to design various reports. And of course, we're going to do Q&A at the end, but I encourage all of you to also enter your questions through the chat box that I believe Kara and Christine are moderating, and will bring them up as needed. All right, so before we dive into the demos, why should you use Power BI? At the end of the day, Power BI is a business analytics tool that can help drive data culture in your organization. Instead of making gut-based decisions or having the loudest person in the room be heard, you now have the ability to maximize the value of your data assets to make informed strategic or tactical decisions. The truth is, companies who believe data and process can make a huge difference they're growing much faster than those who aren't. During this time, some people will win and some people will get left behind. But why get left behind? Why is this difficult? Why is being data-driven difficult? Well, for one, we are living in a different era where data is growing at such an exponential rate that there are more data being generated in the past few years than ever created in human history. That's just wild for me to even comprehend. And so people and organizations are incredibly overwhelmed with data, incredibly overwhelmed with Excel spreadsheets, for example. Excel spreadsheets, from my own experience, are used for a number of different things. Even though you have your systems in place, a lot of it is getting exported through CSV or Excel, and Excel is being used for finance, for example. In our world, actuals versus budget versus prior year, where you're looking into all those for the different entities and maybe rolling it up into the parent company. Excel is also being used for client lists. For example, how does a contact move into a client lead or a potential lead and to a proposed client and then a landed client? And then different things along the way, such as how long did that contact become a client, or how is my funnel looking? All of those are being analyzed manually today for the most part. Everything from website clicks, impressions, productivity data, and point of sale data are in Excel. And so it's really difficult to make the most of your business data and focusing on strategic goals. So while organizations want to become this data-driven company, less and less are identifying with it. As per a Harvard Business Review study, there has been 37% approximately in 2017 that identified to becoming data-driven, and that number has decreased to about 31% in 2019. And I can tell you right now, it's not the technology necessarily that's the problem. There are many tools such as Microsoft Power BI that's out there that does business analytics. The problem is the people side of things and the change management side of things. And so I am really glad that you are here today to learn more and just try to take, the first step towards practicing this on your own if you haven't already. And especially at this time, given the economic situation, I truly believe organizations cannot afford waste, and it is more important than ever to make the best decisions as much as you can. So today, currently, most companies spend about 80% of their time in data collection or manipulation. They're trying to put things together from different systems that don't talk to each other, run tons of pivots, perhaps creating different versions of that same Excel report. I tend to say Excel breeds like rabbits, which is true. I've seen this in my own, world where you're creating version 21 because you have to show it to someone else in a different way than what you've done in the past. And then the rest of it becomes, that action-based approach on the findings. Well, what if we're able to flip that ratio, where most of your time is focusing on the high-level analysis and taking an action-based approach on your findings, perhaps disseminating that information, getting the buy-in of your people, determining what the best course of action is, based on the business insights that are getting uncovered using your data. So at this time, I would like to go through an example. And so in this example, I'm going to talk about a client of ours where, they've decided that it's time to implement risk analytics into their business. The old world was about doing manual audits. And so, I was an auditor at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and so I'm very familiar with how we used to do that. A lot of Excel spreadsheets, and it's fairly redundant processes. So in this specific example, the client was going to check if vendors were overbilling them. Because it was a tedious process, this did not occur for all the vendors, and it was not a consistent process for the vendors that they did it for. So as a data analytics service provider, we wanted to focus on one vendor to start. We really like taking a phased approach, and so we focus on the one vendor to try and identify non-compliance to expected billing practices. So the challenge in this energy company is that they had a vendor where they had a complex pricing structure as part of their contract. They had a lot of manual processes, high volume of invoices, and a high turnover of employees. The strategy that we used was to re-perform the pricing calculation through the data modeling in Power BI and the subject matter expertise of the people that we were working with. And we used Power BI to identify billing errors in a 2-year period. And while we have that forensic mindset in a 2-year period, the ultimate intention was to make this a very proactive tool, proactive in continuous monitoring, using this tool moving forward. The result was that the client was we were able to help the client quantify approximately 150 grand of overbilling that we gave the client as ammunition really for recovery negotiations. And this happened not because someone was trying to be fraudulent or had any bad intentions. It was just a product of how manual the process was, and they knew something had to be done. And so now it has become a much better process using the tools that are available and accessible today, and they are now set up for real-time exception reporting. I personally love managing by exception, and I'm sure you do too. And this is just one example of many where Power BI can be utilized. I'd like to take a pause here because I know that I'm speaking to a lot of risk management experts, in the audience, and I think it's really important to recognize that your roles are really developing from being a traditional risk management role to becoming a strategic pillar in your organizations. When looking at this specific example, when you're finding cost savings, when you're finding that return on investment, plus you're also converting administrative costs from all the manual processes into a continuous monitoring tool using automation and data analytics, man, you're really able to reduce the total cost of risk in your company. And so I firmly believe that this is a very timely presentation, and I think there's definitely a lot that you can get out of it once you get in the habit of using it. Now that we've talked about the why, let's talk about the specific tool. A lot of companies like Microsoft because it is very commonly used out there. Almost everyone knows Microsoft Excel and has been using it for decades. So we decided to focus on Microsoft Power BI. But definitely it's a tool, and there are many tools that are out there for business analytics services. Ultimately, it pulls data from a wide range of systems to create dashboards that track metrics, where you can drill into the detail just as much as looking at the snapshot of the state of affairs of your company and where you can ask questions about your data that can be easily answered. There are two key components of Power BI. So Power BI Desktop is a complete data analysis and report creation tool that you install in your computer. It includes Power Query Editor, which can connect to many data sources and combine data, or what I called earlier as data modeling. Once you're happy with your data, you can then design the reports that will be front and center to your company or whoever the stakeholders are. Power BI Service, on the other hand, is a cloud-based service. It supports light report editing and collaboration for organizations. Modeling is possible in Power BI Service, as I will show you later, but it's fairly limited. So this Venn diagram I love because it really shows you the difference between the two and what both can do. However, I will just point out something that's maybe not as evident or clear to everyone. RLS here. RLS stands for row level security. And so what that means is you can customize the different views in Power BI so that the only people that see the information are the ones who are meant to see it. And so security right now is so important. And, this is just another way of showing how they've really thought this through. This is really good because you can have a dashboard that, for example, has critical financial information, but also information for sales teams about your sales funnel and where that's heading and the forecasts that come with that. But maybe you don't want all your salespeople to be able to see, say, the balance sheet. And so that's where you can customize however you want. And there's so much more capabilities here that I will show you instead of telling you. And then I also wouldn't be doing this presentation any justice if I don't mention that Power BI is actually a part of what is called the Microsoft Power Platform. And so it is a low-code platform where Power BI is taking care of the business analytics side, but there are other things that can amplify what you're doing. And so Power Apps is probably what I'm most excited about outside of Power BI. It's where people can build and share low-code applications, and there's a free trial on it as well that you can utilize for, I want to say, 30, 60 days. A very common example that I'll just say is imagine you are using Power BI because you want to bring together accounting information from, say, QuickBooks, and you're bringing in CRM information or customer relationship management system from, say, HubSpot. But then you need a third piece of data that you're tracking manually on Excel. Let's say it's time entry. And so Power Apps can be used to create a form where your people can enter time anytime they want. And when that information is set up, it then can build onto your Power BI analytics so that you're seeing it in real time. So a lot of people don't know about Power Apps, and I think it's really important because it really fills some gaps. If you think, there are things in Excel and you just have no other choice but to use Excel, but alas, there's other tools that are out there, and I can talk about that all day long, but we're going to focus on Power BI just for today. And then maybe I'll touch on Power Automate a bit as something that you can use to create workflows to even increase the productivity of your whole environment. So again, there's so much capability here, but for today, we will focus on Microsoft Power BI. So I alluded to this a little bit, but I wanted to have this slide for you guys because I wanted you to visualize that this is a very, very common problem or challenge that companies face. Perhaps you're running 3 to 5 different systems or databases that don't talk to each other, and you think, or your leaders think, that the only way to solve this problem is to have an ERP migration. There are some times when that is the best solution, but I just want to let you know that there's another way of doing it. And you guessed it, it's using Microsoft Power BI. If a leader gets different reports from all these places and it's hard for them to condense it to key performance indicators and metrics, it's actually possible to just leave those systems the way they are, limit the change management side of things by having your users use the same tools, but perhaps work in the background to condense the views and show it in one place, in one dashboard. So that's, to me, is a very, very important reason why people use dashboards through Power BI and other analytic services, because you can really bring together the information in a single source of truth. Gone are the days where someone is saying, oh, I calculated something a little bit differently than you did, so you should trust my report, and then another person saying something totally different. To me, that's just a headache. So really having that single source of truth is really, really important for you to make the best strategic decisions that you want to have as a company. All right, so like I said, I really just wanted to brush on that, a little bit of presentation context, but ultimately I want you guys to see it in action. So the first example that we have for you is a business case for the municipality of Wood Buffalo. And so I'm going to exit out of this and show you this example right now. If you give me one moment. Here we are. All right. So as you can see here, it looks beautiful. And so the dashboard is very clean, rich in visualizations. And definitely, if you told me, should I analyze this or should I analyze a ton of workbooks with different tabs, I would choose this any other, like anytime. And so when you look at this, you know, I just want to give us context, I guess. All the information here is public. There's a sources page on the last report of this Power BI dashboard. And really what this is getting at is talking about certain trends in the municipality of Wood Buffalo. So in this first page, we're seeing population. Right off the bat, you know, in 2015, we are then seeing that there's about 125,000 people who are in Wood Buffalo. 66% are permanently living there, and then around 34% is part of what you'd call a shadow population. This is, you know, comprised of people living in hotels, work camps, temporary accommodations for more than 30 days in a year. And so right at this visual, you're seeing, you know, what that means, like the count and the percentage all in one place. In the table below, you're seeing the different locations within Wood Buffalo and the count of the population, the percentage of the population, and the count of number of dwellings in that specific location. And dwelling is just, you know, the technical term for houses, condos, and apartments, really any living quarters. You're seeing as well here that, you know, most of the people in Wood Buffalo really live in Fort McMurray. So you're looking at this, you're saying, great, you know, like that's pretty simple information. I can probably do that on my own. But then the real power is really in the interactivity of these different visuals, that anyone who's maybe not as used to financial data or like, you know, specific details can play with it themselves as if it was a website that has a really clean interface. So if I looked on this map on the left of Wood Buffalo, I'm seeing that the biggest circle is actually number 4. And of course, it represents Fort McMurray, which has the most population. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And I'm seeing that, great, it all filters from there. If I wanted to click Fort McMurray, compare it to this area at the top, which I didn't know what it was, and then now it's Fort Fitzgerald, okay, now I'm seeing it side by side and I can compare that. On the right-hand side, you're seeing, you know, division by sex or gender. as well as age cohorts in the population as at 2015. So what I love about this is you're not only seeing that there's 55% male, 44% female, but you can drill down and say, I want to just focus on male individuals in Wood Buffalo and seeing how that differs from the population when combining male and female. So if you look here, there are certain bars that are standing out. So for example, in the 55 to 59 age range, you're seeing that males are about 5.66% of that cohort, whereas if you combine males and females, it's 5.27%. So that's the same with, this one, where in age 60 to 64, it's higher than when it's combined. And so you can do the same, obviously, when you're clicking on females, on the female population, it adjusts in real time. And so whether the data that you want to present is static or dynamic, those kinds of interactivity make it quite useful for your audience or your stakeholders to make sense of the data, to really see the story instead of giving information like it doesn't mean anything. I'm going to show you now the second page of this report. So now we're looking at Wood Buffalo's household income and expenditures. So we're seeing that Wood Buffalo's average household income now in 2017 are here in comparison to Alberta, Edmonton, Toronto, Canada as a whole, and Vancouver. And here we're seeing the cost of living compared to the average discretionary income of Wood Buffalo in comparison to these other areas. And so, we're clearly seeing right off the bat that it's higher. And on the right side, we're now seeing the average household expenditure by category. You're seeing here that, these boxes are there for a reason, and you can select or deselect locations using these buttons. So right now what we have is Edmonton and Wood Buffalo getting compared to each other, where you're seeing income tax is quite a bit higher in Wood Buffalo in comparison to Edmonton. And so if I want to focus on Wood Buffalo just to start, maybe I'll unclick that and see what's my breakdown. It's income tax is my biggest bucket, and my lowest is around education and reading and printing materials. As you can tell, you can make this however you want. If you want to break this out by region or by time period, however you want to tell the story of your data, you have the power to do that using Microsoft Power BI. I saw a question, so I just did a quick check. If the stats on population are originating from an Excel spreadsheet as the source data. For this one, I believe it is, but you can definitely do it in whatever way you want. So I will show you later that you can have so many options as data sources. Everything from even pulling a PDF, which honestly blew my mind when I was able to pull bank statement data into Power BI. And so there's so many options there. And yeah, definitely. I just wanted to address that because I saw that right there. So going back to our Wood Buffalo dashboard, I want to tell the story now of employment demographics. So here you're seeing an area chart of everything from 2019 to 2030. In terms of projections. And so this is, I love area charts because it really draws your attention. And, again, when this is interactive with the rest of the dashboards, that is super powerful. I'm not going to go through too much detail here, other than the fact that, using icons perhaps in, different visuals instead of an area or a bar chart, again, is super easy to do in Power BI. And so here And I love this little section here on number 4, employment by sector projections, because immediately, what am I seeing? I am seeing that industrial, which is the yellow section, makes up the most in these projections. And I'm seeing that, you know, the mine construction or maintenance, the green one, is going to be decreasing as projected. So that is something that is becoming quite intuitive when you're looking at the visuals instead of, you know, getting it in a Word document report, for example. So, you know, just one of the many insights that you can immediately see using data analytics. In this page, you're seeing another map, a different way of showing a map. There's definitely different ways that you could visualize things. And then I wanted to show the interactivity between this chart versus this table. So I am now seeing land supply by location in hectares in 2017. So Fort McMurray, for example, has 553 commercial land and 773 industrial land. So if I want to get to know that a little bit, I'm going to click on it and see that all my other visuals then changed right then and there. I'm seeing that, you know, that was my allocation, but then my commercial land that's shovel ready is actually much less at 125 hectares. And my industrial land that's shovel ready is at 126. And so very commonly as well in this type of visual, it's kind of like a dial. You're also including perhaps targets or budgets where you can show, you know, if it goes over, then you can make it green. If it goes lower, then make it red. And so I really like the interactivity between dials and tables. And again, it's much easier for the eyes instead of having a lot of information in front of you. Here we go on the third map. And so another way of displaying a map that focuses obviously on retail vacancy. And so also another best practice, if you say, would be creating these little notes that you can put right in front of the dashboard, or sometimes you can just hide it. And if you hover over, let's say, kind of a page, you can see that how you would use that visual. And so for this one, it says select areas on the map to filter and hold the control key to make multiple selections. Again, very intuitive, because that's usually how these things work when you use them on different platforms. And again, here you're seeing a lot of information. Like, look at this. This is so many options for you to pick from that right now, even just looking at it, there's a lot, right? And so I want to just deselect all of that and say, I want to focus in clothing and clothing accessories. And so it's thinking a little bit here, but ultimately it shows you that, you know, it's 128 million in 2016, and in terms of actual expenditures, and in 2026, it's projected to increase to 157. And so there's quite a bit of information here that you're looking at, but because of the ability to click, drill in, you know, deselect information, and because it's colorful and rich in visuals, it's not as daunting to attack the information. And, you know, looking at this, imagine this as well in your tablet or your mobile phone, because Power BI is accessible on all those different gadgets. And so the last one here before we get into sources is just information on Fort McMurray's office vacancy and hotel supply and room night and land demand forecast. So I love these building images because it really makes you feel like, okay, I'm talking about office vacancies, right? Like it's something where I'm looking at the 31% vacancy rate, like it's empty, like it's not colored in. Whenever I hover over things, it's giving me more information that I am privy to see. And so I wanted to just give a quick run through of this Wood Buffalo dashboard. Like I promised, this last slide has all the sources for that information. And again, there's many sources that you can use, and I'll show you later as we do the activity. But at this point, I wanted to maybe change our view and look at a different example, not Wood Buffalo public information, but perhaps an executive dashboard. So an executive dashboard, we'll take a step back here because I know there's been a lot of information thrown at you. In this executive dashboard, you are seeing an example of a sample company. It's actually a sample construction company that bids on a lot of projects throughout the month. And this company has a different system to track proposals, a different system that tracks financials, and then a different system that talks about like the client specific information, or perhaps, you know, like how profitable certain clients are. So I'm going to focus on this example for the next little bit to again show you the power of Power BI. So here in the front page, you are seeing quick metrics that perhaps leaders are wanting to see in real time. And so I'm sure you've heard of different business owners or presidents or decision makers that say, you know what, like there's so much information on my business, but I really, really care about these 5 KPIs. And so that's what we really encourage this front page of an executive dashboard to be. So as you can see, they bid on a lot, this company bids on a lot of different projects, and so they care about proposal rate, they care about win rates. And so you're seeing that dial with a target there, like I alluded to before. You're seeing actual versus budget on revenue, gross margin, and net income. And on this right-hand side, the total number of clients and the average revenue per client. On the top right-hand corner, you're also seeing a drop-down for time. So you can look at this year, this month, this week, this day, and you know, you can filter this and customize it however you want. So I'm going to dive into perhaps both of them since I think we have a little bit more time. I'm going to go to proposal tracking. So in proposal tracking, I'm just going to enlarge this for you all. In proposal tracking, for example, again, this is just an example of a specific problem. You can imagine this with how you would use it for your organization. You're seeing that proposal rate that was a very important KPI that was at the front page. And then you're seeing a heat map of proposals looked at, submitted, and no proposals. And then here you're seeing perhaps the proposal rate over time, where you are seeing that, you know, the target is that 70%, and anything that's above 70%, you'll immediately see because it's highlighted in purple, and anything below it is highlighted in gray. So again, very intuitive. You're getting the information much faster, so you spend more of your time thinking about what to do about it. The same goes with proposal rate by project type and proposal rate by region. And you can also have different options here for seeing this information in a map, perhaps. So we've seen maps in the Wood Buffalo example. And so again, this is another way of showing information. Maybe the size of the circle is related to the win rate that each of the regions of this company has. So for example, Kananaskis has a proposal rate of 100%, but hey, what does that really mean? Is that because they're looking at a lot of things and submitting it a lot? But you're easily then answering that question because of the tooltip option. The fact that you hover over that circle and see that while the proposal rate is 100%, I've only looked at one and I submitted one, then that's the case. And so, yeah, it's actually proposal rate, not win rate on this specific map. Going back then, we'll be able to see details on, this section. I'm not going to open it, but sometimes you want to see things through visuals, but sometimes you want to see it through a table. So you have the option of doing that if you want. And if you want to switch the view instead of count of proposals to dollar value of proposals, you can also do that just through the click of a button. You can imagine how this can be quite complicated if you have this not in a visual way. If you're trying to communicate this in Excel or in Word, there's a lot of information here, especially when you take into account all the different drop downs that you can have. And as I told before, the beauty of this is really having a single source of truth, and you're not looking somewhere else for the answers. You're looking at the same thing, but you can slice and dice the information based on what you want to get out of it. And so I'm just going to click on results just to kind of loop around and talk about, this was proposal rate, looking at what's out there is in outstanding and results. And so for this specific sample company, the win rate is 16% compared to the 15% that was their target. So again, it all functions the same way. So maybe I'll get out of this and show you an example of the finance side of things, and then we'll move over back to the PowerPoint. Here in financial reporting, you are able to see, I'm not going to full screen anymore because I know we're going to just cruise through this. In financial reporting, again, front page, you're seeing a summary. What is important? Imagine if the executive dashboard was for your CEO, maybe the financial summary you want your CFO to be looking at. You can, for example, get your CFO to subscribe to just this page. And maybe now is the time that I show you how the beauty of that. So when you click on subscribe, you can click add new subscription, and check this out. You're able to then schedule emails that can be, and alerts that can be sent to your CFO or to yourself or whoever you want to send this information to. If you want it every 3 p.m., for example, every day of the week. If it's live, fresh data, you want to subscribe to it, this is as easy as this. You can click on subscribe, put the information, and say, okay, the email should have a link to the report in Power BI, and then you just save and close. I'm not going to go ahead and do it, but I just wanted to show you the alerts piece because it's really a strong feature of Power BI. Because if it was up to me and if I had to pull information from different systems, it's definitely not as strong when you compare it to just these things just come in front of me and it's telling me maybe just the things that were wrong. So there's a lot of customization that you can do there. Revenue net income is a little bit more of detail from the summary that the CFO would perhaps want to see in terms of trends. And as you can see here, you're immediately seeing that we're doing better than budgeted. We're doing 45% better than budget. And when you click on this, you then switch to previous year comparison, because the next question that commonly happens is, okay, well, we did better than budget. How did we do compared to prior year? And so again, in a click of a button, you change views. It's the same data set inside. Everything's good. The last thing that I will show here before we move on is AR AP. This is very strong because it's important. Cash flow is king, and especially at this time. And so immediately you're then seeing, okay, what is my problem? Is this okay that I have 20% in my 121 days of AR? I would like to know what happened there. And so if you click on it, then you're seeing everything change in terms of who the clients that owe you in this bucket and how much do they owe you for. And so again, you can even have an alert here that says the moment it hits the 20% of my total invoices, I need to be alerted on that. You could create that metric and have an email fired to you or a text fired to you even to be able to do something with it, whether you get your account manager to call the client or you call the client yourself. So again, being more proactive instead of realizing it at the end of the month and say, I wish I knew this sooner. That is one of the many features that Power BI can help you with. All right, so we've gone through a lot here. Like I said, this agenda is packed. I'm just going to go back into our PowerPoint and kind of get us back to the value proposition. You've seen it. We're going to go through an activity together so that you can see it even more, but I'm just going to summarize a little bit why you should use Power BI now that you've seen an example, and if you have to convince others, what are the communication points that you want to tell them? All right, some bullet points here. It's a very powerful and versatile tool, as you have seen. It's useful for all parts of your business. You are able to establish that single source of truth, and you can do data transformation using Power Query. Once the data is set up, you can just re-upload that same data set in the same format, and everything, let's say a recalculation of revenue, can be done in minutes, no longer hours. So it's just, again, front-end investment to get you those lasting, sustainable, scalable benefits. The role level security, which I've touched on. And on the next page here, incorporating alerts or push notifications, eliminating ad hoc reporting where you're doing it now, but you're never doing it again because it's kind of off the side of your desk and you don't want to do it. That goes away because if you have it scheduled, refresh, set up, it will come to you. Again, mobile friendly, collaboration using team comments and subscriptions, the ability to amplify the power of Power BI using other parts of Power Platform like Power Apps. And last but not the least, how affordable it is. And so it's about 13 Canadian, about $10 USD per user per month for Power BI Pro, and it's hard to beat. I have definitely said Excel a lot in this presentation, so I would like a comparison to show you the comparison of the two. I may have touched on it already, but we'll go through this fairly quick. In Excel, you're doing it in you're doing calculations and analysis in multiple spreadsheets, but in Power BI, you import from different source files. You're doing a lot of pivot tables, VLOOKUPs, and model building by hand in Excel, but in Power BI, you're doing those sustainable data transformations. In Excel, you're doing static reports, whereas in Power BI, you have dynamic interactive dashboards, as I've shown you all. And lastly, in Excel, results are mailed out and changes are done by creating many versions of the same thing. However, in Power BI, results are always up to date, especially if you connect it right to the data source. So to wrap this section up, I want to say that, Power BI is really where you can share data visualizations that help everyone make decisions based on fact and not instinct. And with that in mind, we have reached 50 minutes into our presentation, and now it's going to be the activity. It will be really fun for us to do this together for those of you who are planning to do it. And before we go into the data modeling, let's start not in the modeling phase quite yet. Let's navigate through Power BI Service first, which honestly you guys have already seen because Executive Dashboard actually is through Power BI Service. To reiterate, basic editing is possible here. You can make comments, you can export to PowerPoint PDF, you can share report with others and ask questions. That's just a few of the different possibilities in Power BI Service. So I'm going to get out of there and go back to this view. So this is Power BI Service. All you need to, maybe I'll go from left to right here so you know how to navigate through it. So here in File, you can actually download a PBIX file of what you're looking at. And so a PBIX file is just like a .csv, or it's the file name of what you're doing. And so the moment you download that, you can then start using Power BI Desktop if you want to edit your data source or do more data modeling, for example. In export, like I said, you can export to any of these. I actually did one earlier just to show you an example. This is an example of a PDF of the executive dashboard. And so it's super easy to do. It takes 1 second to do it. And it's really good if you want to include certain visuals or certain pages of your Power BI into, your board package or your MD&A package. Here is where you can share your report. You can even embed your report, in your website or portal. We've done this with our website, SharePoint, whatever it might be. You can make comments. I created a test comment 13 days ago, as you guys can tell. But this actually becomes very useful when you're collaborating with your team. You're like, hey, John Smith, I need to know why we're doing less than targeted in proposal rate. Why is it 65 than 70? And so, those types of things is how you can utilize comments. I've talked about subscribe already, and I probably jumped the gun on that because it's very, very useful. And then edit, last but not the least. So if I click on the edit button, it's taking a while because there's a lot of data in this Power BI dashboard. Now you're seeing a different view. Now you're seeing the different tabs going on, and you're seeing the different tables that were brought in for this specific dashboard. So there's an account table, there's an AP table, client table, so on and so forth. And so so you can use any of those to edit some of the visuals that you have. So what we can do here is click on Proposal Decision tab. And I'm just going to go through this quick. I'm sure some of you are antsy to try the activity that we have in mind, but I just want to show you that in Power BI Service, even if you don't have desktop, if it was just shared to you and you were given edit access, you can click on a visual like this lovely donut chart, and you can just say, okay, I want to change that into a pie chart over here. And so I will click on that, and it should update immediately. So you can change that visual into whatever you think it should be. And you can even change the different data fields because it's all here available for you. So the key thing about this is that you need to have your data tables set up already, then you can edit it however you want. But if you have a table here, if you don't have a table here, but you want to use it in your visuals, then you can't do that because it's not available to you. So let's say, I will add from the proposal list, maybe just a tooltip so that when I hover over it, I see it. I want to check out something random, maybe the closing date in my tooltip. Or the legend. It is automatically doing that right there. And it goes wild, as you can see, because that's probably not a very good field to use. But the point being, you can then edit and pull different data fields into this visual when you're in edit mode in Power BI Service. And then maybe the last thing that I want to do in Power BI service before we move on is asking a question. As you can see, there's so many things here. I am definitely just talking about the tip of the iceberg here, but I will show you guys how you can ask a question because this one is really cool. So if you click on Q&A, you're able then to see certain kind of standard questions that Power BI thinks you should ask. But, you know, I will ask a different question. I will ask, who is my top client by, I don't know, highest revenue? And maybe if I can type, it will understand me. Highest revenue. Yeah, let's ask that question. What happens now? Ta-da! Power BI tells you, I don't even see client information on this specific page, but it's telling me that my top client is, say, Clearstream, and it is for, like, let's say $230,000. So there's many different tools like that along the way. I just wanted to show you that these are possible even on the cloud version of Power BI, not the desktop version. So I'm going to stop there and maybe just go down. All right. So we're now at the 60-minute mark. Now it's time to go through Power BI Desktop. And so in Power BI Desktop, again, we're going to transform data and visualize it. And we're going to use the sample data set that Christine emailed everyone this morning. And so feel free to follow along if you'd like. So now we're going to open up Power BI Desktop. If you've downloaded already, this is the first thing you'll see when you open the app. And so as you can see, I've done nothing but open it. It's still untitled. And what we're going to do now is get the data. Remember when I told you guys earlier that I'm going to show you that there's so many data sources for Power BI? Well, to show you that I am not lying, only if my computer goes faster than I want it to be. It's probably because I have a million things open. There are definitely many options for you to have. You can connect directly into SQL databases, online platforms like QuickBooks or HubSpot. Some of them have beta versions of their connectors, but if it's not readily available here, oh, here it is. If it's not readily available on this list, there are different ways to do it through what's called an API. I'm not going to go into that in too much detail, but it's an application programming interface, and really you just need a key to connect two systems together. So I don't know, like there are different systems that are not here, and you just need an API key to set it up, and then you can connect in directly in real time. But like I said, I've actually uploaded PDFs into Power BI, and it's been super successful. You can see the different databases in here. You can see you can connect to SharePoint online lists or Google Analytics. That's also pretty fun if you're looking at, website traffic statistics and everything else. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but what I will do is click on Excel because our sample data set, just to make it easier, is in Excel. So now that I have that sample data set, I'm going to open it. So please go ahead. And I hope your computers are faster than mine at this time. All right. I want to actually go through everything with you, so I didn't want to pre-populate these things. All right, here we are. We're in the navigator for Power BI Desktop. And so these are the different tabs in that Excel, right? And so what we'll do is bring in invoices and credit memos, and then I'll talk through the story. You can either immediately load your data, or you can click on the second button called Transform Data because you want to clean it up a little bit. So click on Transform Data and let it load. So what we're doing today with Power BI Desktop is actually looking at revenue numbers. So we're looking at invoices and credit memos because, you know, we were told or asked to understand customer trends with revenue for a 2-year period. And so you'll notice that this data has 2016 and 2017 data anonymized again. And, you know, we were specifically told when you're looking at revenue, don't just look at the invoices, but also take into account the credit memos that go along with the invoice. So the credits are just like the contra of the invoice amounts. So now that it's all loaded in, this is Power Query, everybody. This is where you can transform your data and, you know, clean it, do a lot of different things with it. There's so many options here, and you can use, you know, other coding languages if you want to do advanced things. But for today, what we'll do is first combine invoices and credit memos because we were asked to do that. So first and foremost, you want to review your data, right? You want to see, okay, what do I have here? I have document numbers, posting date of the invoice, customer name, shipment date, so on and so forth. And so what I would suggest to anyone before even starting to do anything is reviewing the different headers of your data. And so because we don't have a lot of time, I'm going to tell you right now that these two tables, invoices and credit memos, both have the same number of columns and have both the same header names. So it's exactly the same. So I'm going to combine it. Combine is the street word, but for Power BI, it's going to be called append. So I'm going to talk about append as a place where you could add rows to your existing table, and merge is where you would add columns to your existing table. So with that, I'm going to say append queries as new. So click on that, because what that means is combine invoices and credit memos and create a new table. So here we are. We're going to append 2 tables. You can append 3 or more tables if you want, but we're going to start simple. So first table is credit memos, and then I will combine it with invoices. So I'm going to click OK. And what I'll point out here is now we have a new table that I'm going to rename as sales. All right. Notice on the right-hand side that we have applied steps. These are the different steps that you did along the way to your data. And so notice that this just keeps adding on things as we do more. And you can go back to any of those steps to edit or delete a step if you want. So really, if you made an error, you can always go back. It's like an audit trail, and you could, you know, edit along the way. So, okay, now that we have our table, we're going to make sure that the data type for each of the columns makes sense. So on the left-hand side of the name of the header or of the column is this button where you can click and say, okay, is document number correctly getting identified as text? Yes, it is, because it has that ABC right there. But, you know, I see date as, you know, date, customer, this looks all good, but hey, item number looks like it's getting recognized as a number and not text. So a number is obviously something that you want to add together, but item number in this specific table just talks about, you know, it's a characteristic. It's a text that represents what was purchased by the client. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to click on text to change the type. And so as you can see, you see that on the right-hand side where you change the type of that column. So we're going to go a bit faster now where, okay, description is text, quantity is number, price, and sales amount are numbers. We can change it into dollars. So maybe let's go ahead and do that. So fixed decimal number because it's a dollar amount. So I'm going to do that same thing for these other columns. AFE number, again, it's a characteristic, not a number. So I'm going to change it to text. Cost center code, Power BI is confused. It's like, I'm not sure. So I'm going to say, you know what, it's text Power BI. So let's change it. And then PO number is text as well. All right, so now that we have done the changed type for our table, you know, I'm noticing that there are columns here that we don't really need. So sales amount, including tax, it's not really something that I care about, especially because sales amount is there. So I'm going to click on that column, and there's a few ways of doing things, just like it is in other systems. You could remove rows here, or you could right click and click on remove. I am also going to remove the PO number. You know what, like I'm looking at it, I don't really need that information. I want to focus on the things that like really matter for my analysis. So I'm going to remove that as well. Okay, now that we've removed it, you know, it pops into my mind, let's say, that I want to understand what the trends are on what my clients are buying. What are they most interested in? So maybe they want to, I don't know, buy pipes versus balls. Like, I don't know, because there's so much information here. There's over 1,000 rows and 11 columns on this data set. Again, you can have even way more than that. So my problem, though, is that my description has a lot of different things I don't really care about. I really just care about pipe versus ball versus gate. So now we want to bring in product type table. Product type table might be, for example, in a whole different database or in a whole different table in your system that you want to bring in. So I want to show you guys how to do that. Click on new source, in this case, Excel. Click on that. Again, click on sample data set, open. It's going to ask me again what tab to bring in, and I'm going to say look into product type. Cool. Well, I'm going to click OK, bring that in. And try to bring it into my existing sales table, because that is now my main table. So in sales, you know, I've shown you guys how to append, which is adding rows. We're now going to add a column. So I am going to go ahead and, you know, maybe go to the very right, say merge queries, but I'm not going to merge as new because that will make a new table for when I add a new column. I'm just going to say merge queries into this existing sales table. When I do that, we get this. So it is showing the existing sales table, and it's asking you, what do you want to merge it with? And I'm going to say, merge it with product type, please. And with that, oh, actually, I have something that I did not do properly. As you can see here, it is taking into account description and product type as like a field, not a header. So I am noticing that I missed a step. So I'm going to cancel that, and I'm going to go back to product type. And this is a great example of how a typical data modeling exercise goes. If I go into product type, it says, okay, like it's not recognizing these things as my headers. So the answer to that problem is one click of a button. Use first row as headers. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to promote to headers, and now automatically Power BI changed the data type on them, I believe. So, okay, now that we've done that, let's go back to sales and get this puppy merged. And so I'm going to merge queries, have this left table for sales, bring product type. Alas, now it looks better. I am going to tell it that, you know, this description column should be the same as the description column on the product type table. And I'm going to do a left outer join, and all that means is anything on the left table, which is the sales table, should find the similar information on the right-hand table, which is product type. But if it doesn't find its corresponding pair on the right table, keep the left table the same. Like, just keep what's in there in the left side if you don't find your pair. So we'll do that and click OK. Oh, notice here though, that based on left outer join, there are 1,142 of 150 rows that are matching. So there's 8 that are not matching. We'll figure that out later. So we're going to click OK. Now that we have product type, we're going to click this as part of the merge and say, I just want to see the product type in this table. And I don't need to use the original column name as prefix, so I will click OK and expand that. Great. Now that you have this, I am going to get this a little bit closer to our description. And it's as easy as dragging and dropping. And so here I'm just doing a quick check in terms of pipe, is right there. Ball, gate, great. And I see nulls in my data, which is, again, very common, right? Lots of empty data sets with empty or null. And so that's probably why we had those 8 fields that were not pairing properly. So if I look and, check it out, I'm going to click null. Aha, here are my 8 null values. You know what? I'm going to leave it there because I don't want to remove it from my data set, but you can always have the option of doing that if you want by clicking on remove empty. So again, there's so much you can do here. We're just going to keep it. And so I'm going to clear the filter. Very easy. Now we are here. All right, now that we're here, also I just want to point out that I am ignoring 8 out of 1150 rows because that ultimately is 0.69% error. So I'm going to leave it be, especially because I have no reason to delete it for now. All right, so I am going to leave this now because I think I'm ready to bring my sales table to the visual side. Again, please play around with this on your own time. There's different things here like format where it's like I clicked on this product type column and let's say I want to uppercase all of that. It's really as easy as that. So I'm going to keep this the way it is, and I'm going to go back to home and click close and apply. So what that means is it's going to apply the modeling that you've done. So close Power Query Editor and apply. So it's going to take some time here to make sure that it's doing what you wanted it to do, and especially because it's pulling all those tables like invoices, credit memos, sales, and product type. And now that I'm looking at it, the first thing that I'm actually going to do once this is in is save my PBIX file. Right now it's untitled, not saved, so if anything happens, you know what happens. I'm sure maybe you've had that issue before. I definitely have. So saving always is super important. Maybe as this is also working, you guys saw how intuitive Power BI Desktop could be, especially on basic editing. Control Z still means Control Z in Power BI Desktop, for example. Like you could undo things that you didn't want to do. Okay, well, as I ramble on, it has done its job. So I'm going to just go ahead and save this into this file. So it's the PBIX file right there. I'm going to say sales dashboard. Okay, so now we're seeing a blank canvas, right? Because all the modeling was in the back end. Like you're seeing here, this is the report where you can create different reports in your dashboard. This is the view of the different tables that you have. And so the preview that it's going to show you is, I believe, the credit memo. But you can also click on a different one so that you can see the contents of those different tables that you've brought in from Query Editor. And then the last view here is the model. And so what that really means is like, how did these different tables interact with each other? And so these were the 4 tables, and it interacted because I connected certain things, like connected description from product type to the sales table, so on and so forth. So this can be quite complex, but for the meantime, we're going to keep it, this is just for information purposes. All right, well, now the fun begins because we now have a report page. So I want to just change this tab to say sales trends. And I want to open up visualizations and my data fields. I want to focus on the sales table. And so I'm going to open it up. And what should we start with? Let's start with a pie chart. If I click on this, I will then see a pie chart show up in my canvas. And I want to know, the breakdown of my customers by sales amount during the time period of this data set. So notice that all we did was click 2 fields and automatically that happened. Like, it is so easy to use. So right now we're seeing that Global X comprises of about 63%. And so on and so forth. And so again, I didn't do any other coding there other than bring it in because Power BI has these visualizations that automatically show the percentage and the number. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click off of that visual and create perhaps a ribbon chart. If you click on that ribbon chart, you can then click on customer, perhaps click on sales amount, and shipment date. Let's talk about when these things got shipped. And so it's not doing what I want it to do because customer, it automatically went to an axis view. So what you'll do is drag it down and put it as a legend. And now it looks a lot more like what we want it to show. Immediately, I want to show interactions between visuals because it's actually, Power BI gets a sense that you want it to be interactive. So if I click on Global X up top here, it actually focuses on Global X on this specific visual. So it's as easy as that. And as you can see, there's already tooltip options here based on the visual that you selected. So we're seeing that, Global X sales in 2016, 2017, the change, so on and so forth. I know we're close to time here, so I'm going to do one last visual and then stop for Q&A. Let's create perhaps a stacked column chart. So I'm going to put that there because we did all that work to create product type. Let's use it. So product type, I'm going to drag in. I'm going to have customer, and again, I care about sales amount because it's my sales trends tab. So with that, I am currently filtered for Global X because I clicked on it here, but if I don't, it then shows you everything. You can do a lot of different formatting here. So for example, sales amount 1 by product type 1 is not really how I want to title things. And so you can just change it here by saying sales amount by product type and customer. It's as easy as that. The other thing that I want to show from a page filter perspective is, I'm clearly seeing that things like XGH are customers that don't really make a big portion of my sales. And so what if I create a filter where I bring in customer? So I'm just pulling in customer from the field, dropping it into filter and saying, I want to select all of it except XGH, which is only two instances, and BCG. And so if I remove that, it then applies automatically, and it's as easy as that. Again, there's so many more things here, and maybe I should have, we could make this a little bit of a longer session, but I will do one last thing so that you can see how easy it is. I'm going to click on mobile layout in view. And so if you click on that, you're then able to see how this would be presented on your phone or on your stakeholder's phone. And it's as easy as dragging and dropping your different visuals into that phone view. So again, you can format this and make this as pretty as you want or as detailed as you want. And ultimately, when you click off of it, then you're back into your page. And the last thing that you want to do if you want to go ahead and publish it is just click File, Publish, and you click on this thing that says Publish to Power BI, and that means you can publish it to Power BI Service, which is what I showed you earlier. So I am going to stop there because I've definitely given a lot of information to everybody, and pull up my Q&A slide. Because I definitely felt like there was a lot there, and I am happy to answer any questions and perhaps give my email so that we could answer any questions if you have them after. Thanks, Christine. Thank you, everybody.
And thank you, Jessa. This was incredible. Thank you so much for your time. I don't know anybody who is on the line who isn't absolutely wowed by this experience. I know myself, I've been a Power BI user for probably about 5 or so years. And every time I touch this product, I learn something brand spanking new. So first things first is, I think the one question that came up, I think that really kind of helps to maybe push into a couple of last minute questions is, how does Power BI compare to other programs? And I'm not going to use the names just because I know we probably don't have a license to them. I know from my perspective, it wasn't necessarily the most intuitive. It wasn't as easy to use, but the licensing, one of them in particular, I can't mention their name, but the licensing was, I think, $70 per month compared to Power BI. Did you maybe want to go over the difference between a couple of the other ones as well?
Definitely. Do you see me? I think this is working, right? Okay. Yes, there are a lot that's out there. Power BI, from my understanding, honestly, is the most cost-effective one. Microsoft has really democratized it, I guess that's the word, like trying to make it as easy as possible. The other ones are sometimes strictly visualizations or strictly data modeling. So that means you will need even 2 licenses to bring it together. So again, I'm not naming names of different products, but sometimes, you know, there's a specific product for just the transformation. So what you saw in Query Editor, it's a very, very intense version of that, where you could use like your coding expertise, and then you would publish it to a different platform that's just visualizations. The beauty about Power BI is it's great because it's scalable. It can be as complicated as you want and as simple as you want, but it's using the same environment in that Power Platform.
Terrific. I think the next one would be the GIGO question. So garbage in, garbage out. And so, you know, being able to take in either different sources and accumulate them together. But, you know, the visualization is only going to be as good as the data. Could you maybe provide some thoughts about making sure that you've got the best data to start with and prepping your spreadsheet, but also as well, sometimes, you know, based on the fact we just have to play the cards as we get them. And so we have to explain maybe confidence ratio or work towards better data governance. Can you maybe provide some insights about prepping the information to go into Power BI, and then maybe also helping to develop that information into intelligence over time?
Yes, it's a very loaded question, that's for sure. So I just want to answer it honestly by starting with, there is rarely any situation where you have perfect data. There's something that you probably just want to edit, clean up a little bit more. So I mentioned in my presentation, starting and going through a phased approach. So starting with one vendor instead of attacking all of them, starting in a specific department. And I tend to recommend going through phase 1 with a business process that you're super familiar with, if possible, because it means that you know the process really well, and you know for the, you know, what the data means. The data really reflects the process. And so if you know that really well, you're leveraging previous work done or previous analysis done in that area, you can, you know, consider it a low-hanging fruit. And so it's a really good place to start. The other piece on data governance is it is not something where you have low-hanging fruit for the most part. You could, you know, have that for that specific phase, but really it's an organizational strategy. And I tend to say you just need to start small and start simple and start now, because as you project, you know, the dashboards, absolutely everyone is going to pick it apart and say, this is wrong, I don't trust this, et cetera, et cetera. But then if you didn't even take that first step to recognize that there's something wrong, how would you even recognize that something wrong was there in the first place? And if you don't start now, you're going to be behind 5 years from now, especially when more and more people want clean data to generate machine learning algorithms, which is something of a whole different session.
And so I think with that, you know, everyone is seeing like the potential, I think, that you have shown them just from this very basic few functionalities that you've provided. We've had a lot of questions around, you know, enhanced search features. So again, if you're looking for multiple data sources and you're able to aggregate them together, you know, being able to find those needles in the haystack, either through the use of additional visualization APIs or, you know, questions or bots or things along those lines, but also, you know, using R or Python script if, you know, you're super fancy and super sophisticated to be able to really cool tool information that comes from the data and the use of maps. Now, for me, I love the use of maps. So somebody who works in the insurance and risk management business, this is the bee's knees when you're talking about like looking at putting all of your assets on a map and making it look really pretty in this really hard market to show underwriters what they have at risk. Can you maybe describe a little bit about the use of maps and, you know, maybe some of the work that might have to go into the background, but maybe some of the benefits to using it in the long run?
Right. So very rarely do we have data on our clients from a longitude and latitude perspective, like in a map. And so what commonly happens is we just get addresses. So if you have an address, you can make it work where you have an add-on to Power BI, you click on it, and then you just upload your data of different addresses, as long as it's formatted properly, because obviously if it's not consistent, Power BI goes, I don't know what you're talking about. And it is definitely, you have a lot of options actually, because there's different map visualizations that's out there. But yeah, my answer is you don't need that latitude, longitude points. You just need an address, or even if you want to organize it just by regions, that work too. So it's very dependent on what you want and to start anyway, because you can always improve it as you go along, right? If you recognize that you don't have that data, okay, let's start collecting it. And I think you asked about the potential for the use of maps. There's so much where it's interactive with other visuals. And so I think I showed you throughout Wood Buffalo, you can click on an area and then all the other information shows up. And so, you know, that's just one of many. It could be like the size of the circle in the map. You could color the different circles in the map to represent something else. Like we have worked with a client that wanted to score things green, red, and yellow, just, you know, based on risk. And so you can then imagine a map across North America and red, green, and yellow everywhere. And so immediately you're seeing, oh, it's red over in, I'm not going to pick on anyone else's city but mine, in Edmonton. And, you know, it's green anywhere else, and so on and so forth.
Terrific. And, you know, from a risk management perspective, you know, in some cases in Alberta, we also have a bit of a goofy naming convention for very rural addresses. So certainly if you have GIS information and are able to provide a long and lat, that is probably the best way to go. And I know in some regions as well, we share names with other cities or other towns that are probably a little bit more famous than some of the ones that we have here in Alberta. So sometimes you may enter in something like, let's just say London, Ontario, but it will ping you to London, England. So depending on the type of map that you use, like the visualization, you may have to go in and just check online, and there's a particular way that you format the information to go in. So it will then help to take that information and narrow it down to a particular geolocation. So it will narrow it down to the country, province, and then hopefully into the right push pin on the map for you. So you're, as some municipalities share multiple names. Now, with that, we're running out of time today, and there are a lot of really cool things that Power BI can do, and there's a lot of really cool things that Jessa can do. And so with that, I want to thank Jessa for sharing her skills and her knowledge with us today. And I would love to thank Kara Bedford for supporting NARIMS and risk and insurance practitioners, not just in the Northern Alberta region, but based on today's registration outcomes. It's from around the world. So we have people from New Zealand and England and Texas and so many other places other than just Edmonton and our immediate region. So with that, we're so thrilled to share this wonderful experience. You don't get to share our sweater weather, where it's already snowing here, but hopefully we'll be able to share a second one of these events with you, and maybe something that's a little bit more focused in on risk and insurance management information. So with that, I want to thank you guys for joining us today. You always have a choice on where you go for your education, and we're grateful that you chose us today. So thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
Yeah, and Christine, if I can add as well, I don't know if they're seeing my last slide when I switched over, probably not, but we are offering that the first 15 individuals who could email info@compuvision.biz will get like a free data analytics solution consultation from Copyvision. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity. And again, first 15 to email info@compuvision.biz gets a consultation to talk about how you can become data-driven in your company. Thank you.
Well, Christmas has come early. Thank you so much, Jessa, and thank you so much, Copyvision. Thank you, everybody, and I hope you enjoy your day. And look in your inbox for the link to the Copyvision YouTube channel and the material that we presented today. And do share it with your colleagues and friends. Have a wonderful day.